obsessed with anime and anime characters. So what happened, in my opinion, other people will give different opinions, but what happened was they were basically like, well, this is just dubbing, right? So it functions under the same contract. Anime functions under the same contract that dubs live action, right? And we all know how dub live action sounds. It does, right? Like how many people are just like, yeah, give me that live action dub, right? So it all functions, unfortunately, under the same contract. Yeah, right here, sunglasses.
Where did you find 17,000 things to audition?
Well, over a long period of time, for sure, right? But the other way that I looked at a lot of auditions was casting websites, where there was just a lot of opportunities. There's lots of projects out there, right? People who want internal corporate videos to talk to their own clients and stakeholders. I've taught people how to make pancakes at IHOP. I have given extremely complicated lectures on semiconductor behavior. Everybody needs, like, that all needs voice. So it's a mixture of direct marketing, casting websites, and agency representation bringing me that work. Yes, White Mage.
With the emergence of AI, is that something to kind of be concerned about coming into the voice acting industry kind of career thing, or is that something maybe, what's your view on that?
It's really hard to dissect what the industry is going to look like with AI. There are a couple of points that I always try to maintain in that. One, in order to make a good model, you must have good talent, right? You can't give something bad data and generate a good result. So good acting will always be required, even if AI takes prominence. The second thing is that voices expire. There is a reason that you no longer hear "in a world," right? Nobody hires that anymore. And I get a lot of people who come up to me with like these big booming voices. And they're like, yes, I'm in radio and I speak like this all the time. And I've been like, we got a lot of work to do. Because nobody hires that anymore, right? So even if you listen to voices from the 1970s, that sort of like somewhat like transatlantic kind of buzz that comes with the 1970s voice would sound really weird advertising TikTok, right? So voices will expire and need to be updated. And then they will need to be updated with talented actors. How AI is going to go, I have no idea. If there's a world in which I can get paid for a model of my voice to do work and I can maintain control over how my voice is used and achieve fair compensation, I'm very willing to have that conversation. When it's out of my control, when a company decides to take my voice and use it for all purposes, I'm not okay with that. I no longer have agency over my likeness, right? Which is currently a law in things like your face, right? I can't take a picture of you on the street and use you to advertise something. So the laws are catching up. The technology is evolving faster than the legal landscape. I think we'll get there. California just released a No Fakes Act that kind of like helps protect people's likeness. So it's really hard to say, and anybody that tells you they know how it's gonna go is lying. It is just, it's too dynamic right now. Yes, right here.
So would you say that the window for video games and animations ability compensation? Okay, how do I phrase this? You say like the other types of voice acting, like, you know, audiobooks, advertisements, that sort of thing, that's where the money is. And video games and animation are covered under the live action dubbing contract, and that's just a really bad contract. Has the window for getting properly compensated?
Can we make it better is the
Yeah.
question. Do I think it's possible to make it better? I think that history has shown us no. That it will be it's very difficult to gain ground in contracts, which is why it's always important to establish the best agreement that you can when you're making it. For example, we've been on strike for video games twice now since 2016. The 2016 strike attempted to tie actors' payments to the success of a game to try to kind of boost our earnings, and it didn't really work. We can get I've found that negotiations can kind of like keep up with inflation and cost of goods, But it's very difficult to walk in and all of a sudden be like, hey, will you pay me twice what you've already been paying me, regardless of what we think it's worth. It's very difficult. Anime got its first raise in like 20 years, like 3 years ago. So it's difficult. It's very difficult. Yeah.
You said that the landscape is like changed where people are doing a lot of things at home, remote, all that. Say for the average person who's in voice acting or like kind of up and starting, how much travel do you end up having to do overall now?
I do 99% of my work from my booth, even though I'm in LA. And I'm unique in that I started as a home studio guy, right? I started in Virginia, by the way. That's where I spent the first 2 years of my full-time career before I moved to LA. So the answer was I traveled 0% of the time when I was in Virginia. When I moved to LA and started getting a little bit more into work that required me to be in studio, I might go to a studio 2 or 3 times a week for various projects. Now I might go to a studio twice a month. But that's also because I've established myself as a competent engineer with a very good home studio who is not going to give a company any kind of trouble. Like when I walk into a session, the engineer goes, "Oh God, thank God." Joe knows what he's doing, right? That's just like my reputation. Yes.
I've got a question. Do you have any advice for anyone who has disabilities who wants to try?
Do I have any advice for people with disabilities? That's a tricky one. I'm not qualified in any official capacity to teach folks with disabilities. Have I taught folks with things like speech apraxia and stutters before? Yes. It's just you have to be very careful. That's all. You know, you're always playing the hand that you're dealt.
Or if in a way of rewording what I'm saying, do you think people with disabilities are able to do voice acting in a...
I think it's very possible, and I've seen people with disabilities. I work with people with disabilities, whether it's neurodivergence or speech issues. Like I've seen them book. You will be going uphill a little bit more than someone who's not disabled, but that's just kind of the way it works. But yes, I think it's possible. Yeah, I saw you were being here. Yeah.
What casting websites would you recommend?
What casting websites would I recommend? So there's a whole smattering. I actually have a whole separate course on this because it's a complicated landscape. But you're always trying to look at some of them are paid, some of them are not paid. Am I going to recoup my investment? Voices.com and Voice123 have probably the most amount of jobs. Casting Call Club is another great one. Voices US is okay. VO Planet is a good one. Bidalgo is a good one. There are many of them out there. It's kind of finding one that fits what you want to do. Voices.com, Voice123 don't do a lot of cartoons and games. Casting Call Club does a lot more games and cartoons, but it's also a lot of mixed quality projects that may not pay as much. All the way in the back, you guys your shoulders are going to fall off. Yeah, I'll take the hat and then one right behind. Yeah.
So my question for you would be, how bad are your voice acting skills are ready enough for to start auditioning as well as making a demo? So
how do you know when you're ready? Okay, so there's 2 questions in there. One is when to make a demo, and that's its own fight that I have with a lot of people in the industry. I'll tackle that one first. The idea of a demo, right, used to be the idea of a diploma. People treated demos like a diploma. You would go through a bunch of education, you'd probably sign on with a coach for a big package for a long period of time, and at the end, you would go and make this official demo in a genre, which might mean you make a commercial demo, a promo demo, or animation demo, whatever, right? And then you had the diploma. You could go into an agent's office and say, I have a demo, and they'd be like, well, we'll talk about it, right? I don't think that's the case anymore. You can still go, and those are expensive. Making your own professional demo is between $3,000 and $5,000. It's a lot of money. I did not have a full set of professional demos until I was working full-time for 2 years. You don't need them right away. And the demo industry can be a little predatory to where you can be oh yeah, you're a brand new actor, come and sign on with me for a 10-hour package, and then we'll make you a demo, and then you're $6,000 in debt and your skills are just not there yet. You should make a demo when you have a flattening of your skill curve, and your tastes develop as you go, right? You get experience and you feel oh, I'm improving a lot, right? If I'm improving a lot, if my skill curve is steep, and I make a demo here, now it's expired. It's 2 months later, I understand acting way better, and I have to remake that demo. And if I paid $5,000 for it, that's a no-no. So I do encourage people to make their own demos. You need samples to give to people, yes. You can't walk up to someone and be like, will you hire me, I'm a voice actor. And they're like, what do you sound like? And you'd be like, I don't know. Like you need something, but you don't need an immediate $5,000 package. The other idea about deciding like when your voice is ready, I talk a lot about your voice being a minimum.
I know I'll never be the same. Shook my world so hard again. Wish I washed away my sins. He's a dead man walking.